All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It's good to
Thank
have
you for having me,
another
man.
it's good to have another Midwest guy on the podcast. So, and that's important to me. A lot of importance with you, and I'll go ahead and introduce you. So, Eric SchreiberJr., the head football coach and you're just your first year at Hobart High School, right? You just finished your
Going into
first.
my third,
Oh,
going
you're
into
going
my
in your
third.
third.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Um, and you're a young guy, dude.
yeah,
You're a young guy. And that's part of the reason I think for me, a lot of reasons. Number one is you're a young coach, and I think, the transition. I'm 53 years old now, and I'm out of it. But that transition from my generation of coaches being head coaches in high school and coaching at the next level, and then your generation of coaches. Um, it's important. It's important for young coaches to hear from people like you. That combined with the fact that you're a coach's kid, just like
yep,
me,
yep.
growing up around it. And then quite honestly, you're in the Midwest and I don't know how much you know a lot about me, but I was born in Michigan. Both my parents are from Ohio. Um, my dad was actually from the Van Wert area, which is fairly close to Indiana. Um, and then I spent about 10 years, 10 to 12 years between playing at Iowa, coaching at Missouri, Arkansas State, and I just love the Midwest. And I think it's still in the age of football that we're in with transfers and open enrollment and certain states having NILs and kids, all that stuff, that I think the Midwest is still truly the kids that play football and the coaches that coach truly do it for the right reason. So again, I really appreciate you coming on. Um, Read a little bit about you. You've already done some great things. Um,
Thank you.
which I know I'm talking a lot here, but get this out of
No,
the
you're
way.
good.
So you were the head coach for 2 seasons at Gary West side, right?
Yep,
Leadership Academy. That was your first
yep,
head job?
yeah, yeah. I was 24 when I got
That's
hired.
that That's awesome, man. And here's the big thing, because my first head coaching job was at a school called McClintock High School in Tempe, Arizona. And when I was growing up, when my dad was head coach at University of Arizona, McClintock was the school in the state of Arizona. And by the time I'd gotten there, it had gone way downhill. Obviously, demographics had changed. It's right there in Tempe by ASU. And so it was truly a rebuild for me. And one of the things that caught my eye about you being at Gary Westside Leadership Academy was that you took the participation from, and this is just what I saw, from 42 to 84 players by the time you left. And, you went 2-6 your first year, which, when you're building a program, that's the way you do it right. And then 6-3 and won the conference title your second year. So,
Yeah,
uh, yeah, thanks for coming on. So I want to ask you about that specifically,
sure.
Eric, about, the rebuild and how that prepared you for, your head coaching job at Hobart right now.
Yeah, I think I tell guys all the time that if you want to be a head coach, you really you can't prepare enough for it. That like from the day to day things, like you just got to go do it. I think it's like being a parent. I've got 4 kids, and like I don't think there's ever necessarily a perfect time to be a parent. I think it's just when it happens, and you go. And I don't know if there's necessarily a book to talk about it. I know there's a bunch of coaching books out there that give you as much insight as possible on the job, but like in terms of the day to day, the off season, the grind of what it is, and I love every minute of it, but it is a grind, and it's something that you have to truly embrace. And when you're building a program truly from the ground up, I mean, I remember walking around. It was right in the middle of COVID, and the AD actually had gotten hired after me, and so I was kind of doing. It was a kind of a messed up situation, but I was kind of re-interviewing in a way for the job with the guy that got hired after me, and he was a great guy. Coached college ball for a long time, was from Gary, Indiana, and loved it, had a passion for it, and wanted to see it revitalized. And so we're walking around the facility, and we walk into the locker room, which I hadn't looked at much, and it was absolutely a mess. I mean, there was helmets and shoulder pads all over the place, and paint was coming from the wall, from the ceiling. and the weight room was a mess. I mean, weights are all over the place, nothing's organized. He kind of looks at me and turns to me like, "Hey, you still want to do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, we're here.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's get after it." So yeah, and then so yeah, that experience, really trying to again just really truly start from the ground up. I knew that there was some talent there that I felt like if we can keep them in the school and not have schools recruit our guys out of the school. I thought that we could have a pretty good opportunity to turn it around and so I think from that perspective, how it prepared me for Hobart, like I kind of ran through the gamut of just off-season training to academic side of things to the recruiting side of things to handling parents and dealing with off the field issues or it was a really great experience, kind of a trial by fire to really set me up for this job that I truly am appreciative of, and it's truly a dream job of mine. And yeah, it's something that I would consider. I would tell a lot of young guys, like, go get your feet wet somewhere. Maybe not at Gary West side, but like a program that's in the rebuilding process, and how you handle the day to day of being in a classroom and being in the hallway with the kids, and just the full year experience of it. It's something that I would not trade anything for. I love those kids, and what we were able to get out of them was absolutely incredible. Yeah, so I'm real proud of what we did there, and so yeah, it
Yeah,
helped me
I
set me up for this.
yeah, you need another unique situation which coaches find themselves in, and I'm sure having a father that was a coach, um, probably helped because you can lean on him. I know I did mine before he passed away, but, um, you know, coming into a situation, sounds like you were there for a short time.
Hmm.
The athletic director that hired you left and a new one came in, and that can be a sticky situation for the
Yeah,
especially for the sport of football, don't you think? I mean,
yeah, yeah,
you got fortunate because most athletic directors first of all, most athletic directors now are turning more to business people rather than former coaches.
right.
But on top of that, for the sport of football, I don't care if it's at high school or college, they want their own person in there.
That's right.
And so to have that guy come in and support you like that, and your athletic director being a former coach,
Right.
I mean, that's huge because he can see what you're doing and see where you started compared to where you take it. So good for you, man. You're fortunate and good for
Yeah,
your AD. Um,
yeah. Thank you.
do you think that um, your first head job at a complete rebuild school, right? Do you think that has helped you and going over to Hobart and being the head football coach? Because I know in my own experience, um, like you said, being a first time or being a head coach is kind of like being a father, right? First of all, everybody's going to tell you all these things that you know nothing about. The famous line when you first have your first kid is, "Your life's about to change." Well, I know it's about to change, but you can't prepare me for that, right? You have to experience it. You can have all the mentors in the world, which I think there's a lot of young head coaches and even older head coaches that get away from the mentorship. I know for me, it didn't matter what I knew, where I'd been. I needed mentors in that high school environment, and I had about 3 or 4 and one was an opposing coach in the same region. I'd call him all the time and be like, "Hey, you know, um, how important do you think that is to have someone there because no one can prepare you, to have someone there that you can lean on in order to bounce things off of and then form your own opinion and how you do that?"
Sure. Yeah, I think it's vital to the success of and really the longevity of a guy that gets into coaching. I think if you're by yourself, it's already an isolated role. Being a leader in general, like it is you, and people are looking to you to steady the ship or make a decision in a moment's notice or whatever the case is. So it's already a pretty lonely position. You get blamed for every loss, rightfully so, and then the praise goes to the team, right? And so yeah, I think it is truly a vital aspect to longevity in the career. And whether it's a guy locally, coaches locally that I bounce ideas off to, my dad, or even a couple of my uncles who coach football, just to pick their brains. It's really important to have that circle, and to make sure that the guys that you value their opinions, are people that you maybe were on their staff prior to jumping and taking your own head job. It is crucial to longevity in this for sure.
Yeah, I know, kinda like you, I was fortunate because obviously I had a dad, but he passed away in 2008.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sorry.
but and then my former father-in-law was a head high school coach in the state of Arizona for 30, 40 years.
Wow.
He's in the Hall of Fame. My former brother-in-law, who's we're the same age, had been a head high school coach for about 10 years before I really got into high school, so had
That's
those 2
awesome.
guys as well.
Yeah.
But again, what do you think, even as much as they prepare you for being a first-time head coach, and, you're now in what year? You're going into year 5 of being a head coach, right?
Yeah.
Between 2
Yeah.
different schools. And so you're still growing, you're still learning as a head coach. I mean, that never stops.
Mm-mm.
But what do you think the biggest things that you had to learn on your own, even with all the great mentors that you had to learn on your own in order to become a successful head coach and a rebuilder and build a culture and develop leadership and all that kind of stuff? What do you think the most difficult things were?
Yeah, I think, for the most part, shoot, man, I loved, growing up as a coach's son. Like I loved being in meetings, like with the rest of the staff. Like I loved being at 2-a-day practices, which
Yeah,
we
me too.
can't do anymore. Like that was awesome. Like I just love being a fly on the wall, like listening to the game plan and how to break down tape and. Like those were all things that, like, when you actually had to drive to go meet someone to trade, like that, those are things I genuinely enjoyed. And, even after school, like when I was in elementary and even getting into middle school, like I would go after school weights, where when my dad would host those. And so I loved it. And so like the grind of it, the year round deal, that wasn't really something that I had an issue with. The biggest thing for me was like, uh, just being totally transparent, was like, if I'm going to preach these things to these kids, right? And I'm gonna try to build and maintain a culture or a standard of excellence throughout the program. I need to do it too, and it can't just be in season, and it can't just be something that we do. If I would find myself, especially my first couple of years coaching, I was so consumed that I didn't have time for my kids. I didn't have time for my wife, and that
That's a
came. It
hard
came.
balance, man.
It is. It is something that it's something you have to continuously work at all the time, and because we're in a profession that over 60% of marriages lead in divorce, and my parents are a part of that, and because it can be consuming. You are pulled in every different direction, whether it's from assistant coaches to administration, people in the community, players. There have been a few times where I've been up in the middle of the night because dealing with player issues and stuff like that. So I mean that it happens. It comes with the territory. But when it's time to shut it off, you got to learn when to shut it off. And I think being the best father, the best husband I could possibly be, practicing my faith as much as possible, and not slowing down with that, genuinely provides clarity. It provides a pathway forward, to maintain that standard that you expect in your program, day in and day out. And so for me, that was something I had to learn, and that from that experience coaching at Westside, like, my wife and I sat down. We're like, hey, like we can't do this for another 40 years. But that was something that truly it hit me in the gut. I'm like, all right, you're right. Like this, we need to change. This needs to, I need to be better. I need to be a better husband, be a better father, and ultimately that helped me become a better coach. And again, we're still growing with this, and we're going to continue to keep getting better and better. That was truly like what helped me take over this job here at Hobart.
Yeah, you talk about faith, and I know you have a deep faith just reading about you, but I think that's one thing. If I could go back to being your age, something I would keep at the forefront, of me
Yeah,
as an individual. And I mean, I've always had a deep faith, but I always haven't lived
sure,
by that faith,
right.
and there were times where, um, I didn't practice or work to improve my relationship with God. Not that I was necessarily making poor decisions, but just my relationship with God wasn't at the forefront of who I was. It
Right.
was always there, but it wasn't at the forefront. And then, so good for you for recognizing that, and regardless of what denomination, what religion, what you believe in as a higher power, um, I think we as a society can do better just by putting it doesn't have to be God, it can be whatever you believe in, but
Sure.
just something bigger than us, right? That we have a relationship to. You talked about in conjunction with that, and before we move on, I wanna ask you because I know what it was like for me, but and I know what it was like to be a coach's kid because kinda like you said, I mean, my parents were married until my dad passed, and he was a head Division I college football coach for 24
Right.
years, and so it's a little bit um, different level, right? But, I always talk about him, he was a great man, and, he was an average father, and I say that not because he didn't love us and he didn't, show up to our stuff because he did. But it was the being present, when you were with us. And wasn't his fault. He was always in coaching mode. And I would tell people, and you can probably relate to this, that, my relationship with him was different because, like you said, I was at practices. I was the kid running around. I was going to camp with him. I was in the meetings. I was hanging out with the players. And so my relationship with my dad was different than my sister's that didn't do any of that stuff. So he was more present with me, but when I became a coach, that's really kind of the main thing that clicked with me is that, okay, with my kids, I have 3 adult boys now.
Right.
They've grown up around it, and played it all through college, but, I think that's something that I put at the forefront, was and I used to tell parents this, if you think I'm hard on your boys or treat your boys unfairly at times or play favorites or anything like that,
Right.
understand that I treat your kids the same way that I treat my kids.
100%.
I raise them the same. I think that correlation is super important when you're a leader of young people and you're a parent, is to be able to say, and it's funny because I know you've gotten this where parents will be like, "Well, you favor this kid." And when I first became a coach, I used to say, "No, I don't." And I
Right.
tell my kids that. But then as I got older, it transferred to, "You know what? You're right, I do play favorites. Here are my favorites. The guys that show up, the guys that are consistent, the guys that work their butts off, the guys that are all in with this program, and the guys that help others in our great role model and leaders."
Right.
And so, yeah, you're right, I do play favorites. So if you think I'm not playing favorites with your kid or playing favorite, that's why. It's not because of what they do on the field. How
Mhm.
important is that crossover as a father and as a coach? How does that coordinate with one another?
Yeah, you hit it on the head, man. That's something I had that conversation not too long ago. And exact what you just said. That's exactly what I said. I mean, I'm like, yeah, I play favorites. That's those guys that are here consistently that have bought into what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, that do what they need to do in the school, in the community. Those are those guys that see the field the most and are guys that are going to get the most opportunities to contribute. And that's, yeah, you hit it on the head. But yeah, being a father and coaching, it's the same thing. I mean, that's something we commit ourselves to as coaches. We're lucky to have quite a few guys that are fathers on the staff. And I truly think that it's important. Like if you're a football coach and you're a father, I think they go hand in hand in a lot of ways. And yeah, I think that I coach kids. I try to provide an experience coaching that I would want my own kid to be a part of. And I try to hold that conviction every single day. It's like, okay,
Good for you.
is this the program that I want to see my kid be a part of at some point, whether I'm coaching when they get into high school or not? That's something I've always tried to hold myself to because my kids are old enough now to be around and they see it and they love it and they want to play and do all those things and I love that. I love that they have that in them and that they have that passion about it. But I want them to see how it's done and how it's done the right way, and that's true. That's crucial. That conviction is important.
Well, I want to give kudos to your wife too,
Oh,
because
thanks.
um, having a mom that was a coach's wife, being married to when I was coaching college, with a woman that supported me, you know, having a longtime girlfriend now that supported me in my high school endeavors as well. I mean, all 3 of those women, like, the stuff that they sacrifice, and you say sacrifice, I mean, they don't always the wives don't always know what they signed up for, and
Sure.
I think as long obviously, you guys do a great job communicating, and you make an effort, which means she's gonna make an effort to bring the kids around, to see their dad and understand it, and just remember, always talk through that stuff, man. You
Oh
wanna
yeah.
I mean, you again, coach's kid, you saw it firsthand, but,
Right.
kudos to her and that's huge to have such a supporting woman, mother, wife, partner, all that kinda stuff, so, Mrs. Coach.
Yeah, she's incredible. Yeah, my wife is a saint, man. Our first date, I we talked about what we wanted to do with our lives. We kind of knew early on, like, hey, all right, I think we can do this long term, and we dated for marriage. And first date, I told her, I'm like, hey, this is kind of what I want to do with my life, like, and I want you to be a part of it. And if this works out and we continue our relationship, and it was genuinely then, she's like, "Yeah, I think so," and in that moment, she probably doesn't know she's not from
Right,
coaching family at
right.
all, and then I get my first gig, and then it's like, "Oh, okay, hang on, like, what are we doing? Like, all right, how does this work?" And it truly helped me, again, like you're saying, communication, like, it helped me become the best
Absolutely.
possible, and you continue to work at it, but I mean, we got Google calendars and updates and reminders. And every week we start with our week with like a meeting, talking about what we have going on that week or that month. And yeah, it has made me become a much better husband. But yeah, she is a saint. I can't do this without her for sure. I wouldn't be what I'm doing right now if it wasn't for her.
Well, that's good for you for recognizing that, and you know what? And most coaches don't think about this, but the better communication you have with your spouse, with that woman that is fully supportive and your kids, I always believe that it helped me, be completely transparent and have great communication with parents and with the booster club and with the athletic director and anybody else because I mean, you know as well as I do, especially having young kids, like how many time are your kids go to one of their practices and the coach says, "Okay, practice is going to be over at 5:30," and you're sitting there at 6:15.
Right.
And as a parent that communicates and is active in their household, you understand that when you set forth the calendar and you set the parameters for practice, that when you say, "Hey, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday will be off the field. You can pick up your kids between 5:30 and 6. And Wednesday it'll be between 4:30 and 5, and then Thursday it'll be 4." And then to have and to stick to that because it was always in the back of my mind. Like coaches would be like, "We need to keep going." I'm like, "Dude, it's 5:20. We need to get them off the field."
Yep.
Especially with the freshman group, right?
Right.
Because their parents are picking them up everywhere.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about culture just in general, because I know when I first became a head coach, like I had all these standards. And when I say all these standards, like expectation standards, 8 to 10s, like we're going to do this, it, like 10 of them.
Sure.
And as I evolved as a head coach, I got down to like 4 or 5 because those 4 or 5 standards were really the ones that as coaches, as teachers, that the players um, what's the word I'm looking for? To enforce.
Sure. Yeah.
So how many what are you some of your guys' standards that remain consistent and that everybody enforces on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think they've kind of evolved into an old school mantra here at Hobart High School. I came in and I had a bunch of different types of slogans, and we still use quite a few. Mainly stem from our weekly like leadership series, and so I try to plug them in where they're relevant. But now it really comes down to pride, hustle, desire, PhD, which is it's been an
That's
aged
good.
old kind of saying and acronym here, going back to the Don Howell era, who really built what Hobart football is to this day, is at least what it's been known for. And what it really comes down to: pride in yourself, pride in what you do, how you contribute on the field, in the locker room, in the community, in the classroom. Hustle to everything that you're doing. Have a sense of urgency about what you do, and then a desire to compete in everything. And that's not just limited to the field, in the weight room, in the classroom. And it's truly something our kids have embodied. It's something that our a lot of my assistants who are Hobart grads. I'm not a Hobart grad, but it was important for me to have guys around that love the history and tradition of this program, that can truly set the stage for what was, and but also for me to be able to say, all right, this is what we were, but this is where we're going, and this is what we want to accomplish in the future, and kind of set that vision in that regard. But while not totally dismissing the past, but embracing it, and and being able to implement where it can. But yeah, pride, hustle, desire has been something that has really clinged on to the kids, and in our program, we also use above the line. Above the line for us was something I had stolen from um, uh, Coach Miracle at Westfield High School here in Indiana. An incredible guy. He's a Hobart grad. Sitting in his clinic last year, actually, he brought up the idea of above the line, and it's a pyramid of what we should be to reach our full potential, and then what we should avoid beneath that line. And really, what it stemmed to was avoiding ego, selfishness, uh, complaining, blaming, and accepting poor behavior. And those were the main things to avoid. And in the top, in the pyramid, I actually had the kids fill out a form, and I'm like, hey, all right, these what would embody for us to reach our full potential? What does that look like? What should each kid be striving to become? And it came up to about 20 uh, various terms that the kids came up with, and at the top, obviously, being the full potential and how to reach it, which was great because it had kids buy into what, kind of where we wanted to go and the direction we wanted to go. But then it also laid the groundwork for what we need to avoid, and that's truly the most important thing. And so
And
those,
those are key, not just setting the standards and the terms and stuff like that, but understanding what the traps are.
yeah,
And so that above the line, I mean, that's awesome. And isn't it funny, as football coaches, we have to be the greatest thieves of all time.
yeah, that's all
You
it
know what
is,
I mean?
man. Yeah,
I
oh
mean,
yeah,
whether it's plays, whether it's formations, shifts, motions, defensive coverage, sayings, themes,
yeah.
acronyms, like we're the greatest thieves of all time.
Yeah, yeah, and being able to put your twist and
Spin on it,
personality to it,
right?
right? Because honestly, at the end of the day, you have to believe it yourself, and if you don't, it's not coming off genuine. If it's not authentic, then it's just words on a wall, and they don't really mean anything to anybody. So yeah, dude, yeah, it was really great. In terms of what the kids were able to put together, and yeah, the big thing, like you mentioned, those things to avoid are crucial for kids to see because especially if the culture of the program necessarily isn't where it needs to be, being able to pinpoint, hey, this is what we can't have if we want to be successful. This is not what we can accept from anybody on the team, and getting kids to probably the toughest thing to get, at least in my experience, the short experience I've had, is getting kids to hold each other accountable on that,
I
and
was
we've
gonna ask you.
grown. Yeah, yeah, we've grown quite a bit with that, but yeah, getting your buddy to hold your buddy accountable and that type of thing,
Do you
especially in
guys
today's culture.
yeah, do you and with social media and everything else, do you
Yep.
guys, do anything specifically, do you have any kind of system in place where it's easy for kids to hold one another accountable, or just another person or a group of people or stuff like that?
Yeah, we'll do weekly leadership meetings as a group, and we try to perform uh, scenarios like that throughout the off season to have kids have the opportunity to kind of practice through those in real life, in the real life scenarios when that happens. Truthfully, the biggest thing, at least for this past season for us, uh, which was huge, was providing like team bonding experiences for the entire team that allowed each other to get to know each other more on a personal level, which then allowed the kids to feel more comfortable holding each other accountable. The tightness of the team, the closeness of the team, really opened up a lot of guys, and it truly took that to the next level. It wasn't something, and I felt like we did quite a bit of team bonding. And then we look back and reflect on the season. This past year we did a good job, but the year before, I'm like, man, we really didn't do a whole lot of that. I don't really know if these guys know each other. Like they've been around each other for a long time, but do they really know each other? And that was something that was really we hit it on the head this last year, and we'll continue to do it this season.
Yeah, it's difficult. I always had a hard time. I mean, not a hard time, but the difference between a team bonding activity and a team building activity,
Yeah,
because I think a lot of people think of them as one and the same, and they're not.
no,
Team bonding is, spending time together, getting to know one another as best you can
right.
outside of the field, in the locker room, and all that kind of stuff. Where team building to me is more about an activity that provides leadership, accountability, and, teamwork together. And so I'll share something with you when we get done here real quick. But how many kids do you guys have in your whole entire program, top to bottom?
Yeah, we have about a little over 200 in our youth league. We've got about 80. It ranges between each year, but 80 to 90 in our middle school program. Last year, JV varsity and freshmen, we had 83. This year, we'll have 116. We have
Good for you.
a massive freshman class coming in. Really awesome because this group of freshmen, we started doing youth camps again about 3 years ago, and I was kind of running them and coordinating them right before I had taken over as the head coach. And this group was like the first group of kids that I was able to kind of get into our youth camps, which is really cool, kind of coming full circle. But we've got 47 incoming freshmen, which is incredible for a school with about 1,300 kids, and the class beneath them has about 40 of them. So maintaining that, keeping them out is going to be crucial, right? Obviously, you get freshmen coming in, a freshman class, usually some dip off, by their
Right.
senior year.
There's
But
attrition.
yeah,
Absolutely.
there's attrition, of course. But yeah, our hope is that we've had real strong numbers this off season in our weight room program with them. And we're hoping to maintain a good majority of them as best we can. But yeah,
I know you'll be humble about this, but you understand that kind of increase in participation, and I'm just talking from, even the youth, if you have 200 in your youth program and that many in your middle school program, and it's starting to trickle up or flow upwards, that has a lot to do with you and your staff and your organization and what you're promoting. You know that, right?
yeah, yeah. I
You can
think
be humble
yeah,
about it, but
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
So good for you and
Yeah, I
keep doing
appreciate it,
it.
man.
Um, so with that, and I want to get into leadership, but before I do that, because you just brought up, the numbers, what do
Yeah.
you do in the community that is different than who you came after or people in the past, and not negatively talking, because I think a lot of coaches at the high school level um don't place such an importance on community activity and people seeing your athletes in the community and supporting your community, opportunities to support your community. So what have you implemented that you think has helped that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think winning helps. When you win in the fall is awesome, but no, I think what's helped supplement that has been, we do volunteer opportunities in the community any chance we get. We're able to we haven't been this year, but we will be at some point this semester going back down to our elementary schools, and our kids wear their jerseys, and we'll read books to the kids, whether it's at our kindergarten school or any of the other elementary schools that we have. Our youth camps in the winter and in the summer have been a really big help as well. Just bridging the gap in terms of who the kids see in a jersey and helmet on Friday night versus them off the field or them being able to get coached by them. At a camp, I think those things have been really huge in promoting the program, maintaining kids in the community and not kids transferring to other schools. Our freshman class this year, we won't lose any kids to the high school transfer portal, which is great. And that's something that I felt like, especially in a community like Hobart, it's a blue collar community, a rich tradition in football. still a huge support and love for the game, although that the community has changed over the years, over the last 30 years or so. They love football and they love Hobart football. And, I've always felt like this is a sleeping giant in that regard and what we could be. And I don't think we've scratched the surface on what we can be. I'm obviously very optimistic and think that we can shoot for the stars and what we can be as a 4A program in Indiana. No, I think that a lot of those things, culmination of, they may look like small things. It does take extra time to set those up. It is time away from family, but it is very important in terms of building those connections, not just with the kids, but you're winning over the parents. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
absolutely.
ultimately that's what it comes down to. It's like, hey, do I trust this staff, this coach, this school to send my kid here? Or should I pull them and take them with me wherever I'm at, if I'm teaching in a different school, or I'll let another coach talk me into sending them there. Those are some things that have been vividly in the back of my mind, at least since I've been at Westside, and that's stuff that I definitely have taken here with me, is like providing an experience that again doesn't just equate to wins on the field, but more importantly, how are we building them off the field so that they are productive civilians, citizens in the community. And I think if you can take care of those things and you can show proof of concept that, hey, what we're doing here is working, and we're being successful on and off the field, I think, again, it creates buy-in, and it obviously maintains numbers and gets kids out that may not have come out
Right.
before.
Right. When you do your camps, just a couple logistical questions. Are your players required to be at the youth camps?
We highly encourage our
Highly
guys to be
encouraged,
there.
right, that
Yeah.
term, yeah, I got you.
Yep.
Do wh Are you charging the youth participants? Are you making it super cheap? Are you doing it free? Because when I was doing it, we did
Sure.
it all kinds of ways. I mean, and I just got to the point, it was like $10. We'll give you a shirt.
Yep.
But, just to cover that cost, and people gonna pay $10 to have their kids somewhere for 4 hours on a Saturday.
That's
Yeah.
right, yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's what we do. We charge 30, but then we give them sibling discounts.
Right. Good.
So yeah, each camp's relatively the same, but
Good for you.
that's how we roll. Yeah,
Right. And last subject here I wanna pick your brain about and hear your wisdom about is leadership.
yeah.
Kind of a twofold thing. First of all, I come from that mindset that I think all of us, um, ha people talk about natural leaders or born leaders, and they're two different things, right? I think everybody's born with leadership qualities and the capability to lead. I think environment, can really play a part into, do they become leaders, natural leaders? Because as well as I do, some people just know how to lead,
Mhm.
and it's not ego driven, but it's also an acceptance of the responsibility of leadership, because leadership is not something that any true leader wants. It's what they take on, because leadership is not a fun place to be all the
Right,
time, most of
right.
the time. Um, so with that said, knowing that every player, every coach, or every athlete that you coach, every student that you teach has that leadership quality in them. First of all, what do you do to really recognize those kids that are going to be the leaders of your team, from freshmen to seniors? And then what are you guys doing to develop that leadership quality within those specific leaders and the rest of the kids that maybe not be your captains or your team leaders?
Yeah, what we do throughout an off season, we it's a team challenge essentially, and I'll try to go through this in a few ways. So, like, how we develop leaders, not just like our captains, and I don't try to make it a big deal. Like, I don't really care who's going out there for the coin toss, and I think the kids now have gotten to that point where they don't care either. But prior to me taking over, that was a big deal, and that was something that like meant something, and what it really did was kind of deter a lot of kids from really stepping up in certain ways because they only looked at those guys that went out for the coin toss. Whereas now it could be a kid that never sees the field be vocal in a moment that someone needs to step up, and be vocal in a positive, encouraging way. And so in the off season, what we start doing is a team challenge, and our coaching staff, we kind of put our heads together and we're thinking, okay, who are our 8 guys, 8 to 10, depending on the size of the program, that we feel are the leaders of the program, but kids even that maybe can develop into a leader and just needs to be kind of in charge of a group of kids. And so we draft teams. This is quite a few programs do this now, but they draft teams, and so those 8 to 10 kids will have a group of guys that they drafted, and they are guys that they have to hold accountable throughout the offseason. They're going to get updates on maybe not the specifics of discipline, but they'll get an update on their discipline generally, and they'll get an update on their grades generally, and just have an understanding of, hey man, this guy needs some encouragement here if you can help him out in certain areas, or even just being in at workouts in the off season, not quitting an off season sport, making sure that they're maintaining that commitment through the off season.
Do
Those
you
things.
do you keep those groups the same, like, for fundraising? Like, when you fundraise, you have challenges where you're those same groups are, like, competing against each other, and then there's, maybe a pizza lunch or something like
That's
that?
a great idea. Honestly, we may do that this year because I didn't. We have not done that in the past, but
Yeah.
that is sounds like a great idea because
And with the fundraising, Eric, we always assigned a coach to a team, to a
that's
group.
awesome.
So that coach
Yeah,
was what took the lead on the fundraising and checked in with everybody, and then everybody else.
sure.
Yeah. No,
I'm
sorry.
gonna write that down, man. No, that's good.
It
That's
falls
awesome.
right in
No,
line
that's good
with
stuff.
what you're already doing, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, because that's something like, I kind of obviously those two doing fundraisers. Usually, it's we get a pretty good participation rate, but in general, though, it's those parents and families that do it, and you got the kids that don't, and so. But no, that's great, man. Yeah, so yeah, we put those guys together. Then they have a point system, and you obviously get points given or taken away based on grades, participation in off season sports, at workouts, etc. And so what we find in that though is like, all right, maybe those guys that necessarily weren't leaders, or those guys in those smaller groups blossom that aren't necessarily like the leader of the team, but hey, it's me and him, and then a couple other young guys that were a part of this team and they step up in that way. And so we really try, and I try to get our guys to understand this, especially in the off season, that it can't just be uh, 10% of the team doing things the right way all the time. Generally in a team, and I can't remember where I got this from, but there was a guy that talked about 10%, 80%, 10%. 10% at the top are those guys that are bought in. They do everything you ask them to do. They got good grades, good discipline, everything. They're usually, some of them hopefully are your best players. And then you have 80% of guys that can go one way or the other. They can go with those 10 if that's strong enough, or they can get down to the bottom with the cancerous part of the program. And those guys that blame, complain, and make excuses and don't want to do what they're asked to do. And so, how strong that 10% carries those other 80% and gets them into the fold of doing what those 10% do is really important. And I can confidently say this past season, like we probably had, if any, maybe 1-2% of those guys at the bottom that were potential cancers, or guys that didn't always do what they were asked to do in season and out of season. So, but that has a lot to do with the commitment of these kids and what they've been able to accomplish, and seeing their work come to fruition on the field in a really big way. And so yeah, I'm really proud of that group that we had this past season. But yeah, this next year we've got quite a few kids coming back, and the standard's been set, and we're excited about what they can accomplish.
Good, man. It's funny talk about thieving and stealing. You said the 80-10-10, right? And
Yeah,
I used to always use my first couple of years, and I've always believed this, and it holds true for some aspects. Like, you got an 80-20 rule, right? And,
yeah,
like with parents, 80% support you, 20% don't, and those 20% tend to be the loudest. But I was
yep,
using it for my team, and we got our butts whacked like my second year, like, I don't even know what it was, 56-3 or something. And I took the
okay,
kids when we got back, I made them all go directly, because it was an away game, go directly out to the field and just sit there. No lights on, nothing, and just sit there and quiet for like 5 minutes. And I had this whole thing, but when I got off the bus, while they were walking out there, I stayed back and I called one of my mentors who had actually previously been the head coach at McClintock.
Okay.
And I said, "Bano." His name was Dick Baniszewski, and I said, "Bano." I said, "We got this 80-20," and he's like, "Corb, let me stop you." He said, "Think about it this way. It's more 60-20-20." And I said, "Explain it to me." He goes, "20% of your guys are all in, 20% of your guys don't give a rat's butt, and
Yep.
60% can go either way, so you have to appeal to that 60%."
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's the same thing you're saying, the 80-10-10, and
Yeah.
there are times where it can be 95-5,
Sure. Yeah.
but those 3 factions are super important because you do have the majority of your kids can go either way,
Right.
depending on that leadership of your team. The other thing I wanted to share with you, was funny to me, and I don't know if you find this, but because we had groups too, specifically in the weight room. The weight coach, our weight coach, our strength and conditioning coach would always come to me about every 2 to 3 weeks. And, these kids had these groups that we kept them in, not just in the weight room, but like you said, hold each other accountable, grades, all that kind of stuff. And he'd come to me and he'd be like, "Coach," he's like, "this kid is the leader of group 3." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "I know he's going to be a senior and he's great. He's going to be one of the leaders, or should be." He said, "And he's a good kid. But this other kid in the same group is a better leader than him." It's like, "Really?" And so what we started doing every, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, and we did it in a way where no one knew, right? The kids didn't feel like, the leaders of the group didn't feel like they were being demoted.
Right.
But we would assign, not all to every group, but we would assign based off of points, because it
Good.
usually correlated with the points,
Sure.
that, this kid that's gonna be a junior that hasn't even stepped foot on the varsity field yet, he's gonna be the leader of the group for the next 4 or 5 weeks. Because in our minds watching, he was the kid leading, the kids in his group were reacting to and responding to.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, it's just weird how that's I don't think a whole lot of coaches are doing what you're doing, as far as, I think they have different ways to hold, teammates to hold each other accountable, but that's a great way to really find, the leadership qualities of, you know, ones that have leadership qualities that a lot of people don't respond to, and others that have leadership qualities that a lot respond to. So,
Yeah.
Eric, I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
Seriously,
man. I
I'm gonna
appreciate you.
get you on again at some point.
Good.
Every once in a while, I have a round table with 3 coaches, and so there's 4 of us, and it's a great thing. And so the next round table, I'm definitely gonna have you on. It'll probably be in a couple months, though.
Awesome, man. No
Okay.
problem. That's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate your
Yeah.
time, dude. This is great.
Yeah. Thanks for setting me straight on the last name and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But
No problem, man.
kudos to your family too, not just your wife and kids, but to your dad and your mom and your uncles and all those that have helped, uh really, support you and mold you into the man that you are, and the coach and the father and person that you are. So appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Hey,
that.
Eric, just hang on for a sec, okay?
Yeah, we'll do.
All right, bud.